Oh, this could be good, Doug. This could be really good, Doug.
Oh, Jesus criminy!
God bless America.
Some confusion on the DC side defensively, it looks like.
Aren't they always? But at least they weren't the only ones. Week 3 of UFL action told us a lot about some of these teams, while leaving us with question marks with the others. But we did have our first 300-yard passer, and no, it wasn't AJ McCarron. Welcome to Justified Takes, where I tell you my takes that just so happen to be justified. For what it's worth, I did go 3-1 with my predictions from last week, and that brings my all-time record to a fat 6-6. But before you get too judgmental, the Renegades won a championship with that record. And speaking of the Renegades, it was DC at Arlington. Jordan Teamu looked like the only guy that was ready to play for DC. I mean, his stats may not look that good, but I firmly believe that the success that they had was solely based off of Teamu's heroics. But he was taking the cap off the defense, getting chunk plays all throughout the first half. He only threw for 188 yards though, but he did throw 2 touchdowns and even added an additional 53 yards on the ground. This dot in the back of the end zone is just one example of how much Teamu puts his team on his back. But he did receive some help from his special teams though. Chris Rowland had 125 return yards, and he even had 36 yards receiving plus a tutty as well. But if it wasn't for their kicker McCrane going perfect on the day, including this 58-yarder, then this game wouldn't have even been close. The Renegades, however,
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
but it wasn't all bad though, okay? Luis Perez looked good once again, finding his favorite target, Tyler Vaughns, for a back shoulder touchdown. Then he even had that beautiful trick play in the second quarter. Perez to Vaughns, then Vaughns to Smith for a gain of 20. Then immediately afterwards, Perez finds a wide open Javonte Payton for a tutty. Perez was just a smooth operator, and I mean, just look at the sell of this delayed run. It was just... oh. Even when Perez is off the mark, he still somehow finds his target, Vaughns.
I mean, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, I think.
You ain't got to do my boy like that. Then on their next defensive possession, Jamal Carter breaks up a big pass. They got the ball back and kicked a 49-yarder, and that would be the last time they touched the ball. For what it's worth, this is probably the best 0-3 team I've ever seen. But I mean, the former Boomer Sooner needs to figure out a way to win these games.
Boomer! Texas!
Well, then figure it out, Stoops, because Texas sucks and it's your fault. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, you've lost to a combined total of 4 points. You got to figure it out. I got to tip my hat. Look, Reggie Barlow has done a fantastic job coaching this team for the last 3 weeks. Even though they lost their first game, but these last 2 weeks, he's just made this team, regardless of the situation, just win football games.
Blitz, Bama, blitz, baby. Blitz, Bama, blitz.
And Lord have mercy, did they ever do that? The Stallions are just the Stallions. And what do I mean by that, you might ask? And boy, I'm about to show you.
Lucas running out of time.
Their defense was fantastic.
Rush, and rarely does the first defender in the backfield get him down to the...
Minnie Vick was out here making plays, and that was happening all game long. Martinez finished with 334 yards passing on a 64.3 completion percentage with 2 tutties. Oh, and he was the leading rusher for his team as well. He kind of reminded me of Greased Up Deaf Guy because nobody could get this guy down. Future Stallions legend Deon Cain put up 144 yards but no TD thanks to this underthrow by Martinez, but he did give us this beautiful toe tap though. Their tight end Jay Sternberger had a game putting up 74 yards and even had this happy accident. Unlike me, I'm the opposite of a happy accident, which led to this touchdown. But this isn't the first time that we saw some magic from this offense. Like, what in the matted cheese is this catch by this running back?
doing his best Deon Cain impersonation. Deon Cain has had 2 of those. Well, he wants to get on the highlight reel too. Putting on for the running back room. I love it.
Their defense was absolutely fantastic as well, putting up 8 sacks and 8 tackles for losses, and even had an interception as well, with 3 players having 2 sacks apiece. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Skip Holtz is just an amazing coach. He's done an absolutely fantastic job, and he cannot be underplayed for his role in the success of this team. Because as we're seeing with the Showboats, it doesn't matter how much talent you have if the coaching just isn't there. In the first drive of the contest for the Showboats, Case Cookus was sacked twice. But the chef does what the chef does best, and that's cook amongst adversity. He finds Papale over the middle, and it was all Vinny from there, running for 23 yards to find pay dirt. Later, Cookus fires a laser over the middle to Jonathan Adams, who just paid these two defenders to set up Michigan State's all-time leading scorer Matt Coughlin for a 57-yarder. He would also hit a field goal later in the half, but that's just about it for the good when I'm talking about this team. The Stallions were cooking their O-line, and I'm going to call their offensive line Oprah for the amount of sacks that they gave up all game. You get a sack, you get a sack, you get a sack. I mean, it got so bad that they pulled Cookus just to throw in their backup Troy Williams to get sacked too. Like, how messed up is that? So we can't afford our star player to get injured, so we're gonna throw you out there. Good luck. I'm about to drill into the Showboats team here for a second, because they're not even living up to their preseason power ranking, which we all thought was too low. I mean, they even have a 0-3 team above you right now in the power rankings. And I mentioned something about coaching earlier, and I still stand by that, because for 3 weeks in a row, okay, you have come out looking absolutely dynamite, come out looking on fire, and then in the second half, it's like you completely switch up your offensive game plan. Like, I just don't understand it. That's coaching. And I can already hear it now. Jonathan, they gave up 33 points. Yeah, and it could have been a lot worse if it wasn't for their defense making some big plays on their end of the ball, unlike the offense, who could not score a touchdown to save their life. Oh, and it would also help if they could keep their quarterbacks off of their back so they didn't have to peel themselves off of the turf every other play. I mean, geez, John, you got to figure out a way to flip this team, or you're going to be the team that could have been. Now, the next game was an interesting one. It was the Roughnecks at the Panthers, and let's be honest, I think that this was a way higher scoring contest than we all anticipated. Reed Sinnott came out wheeling and dealing in their first drive. He went 4 for 4 with 41 yards passing and a rushing touchdown. The Roughnecks played pretty conservatively though in the first half, and they needed more chunk plays, but hey, at least their defense was able to contain Perry somewhat in the first half and keep it close. Now, I don't know what it is about these quarterbacks and not respecting their elder, but Perry learned the hard way and got popped. To start off the second half, Isaiah Henney had a great return to set up their offense with incredible field position, but they were only able to capitalize off the return with 3 points. But that's all the good I really have left to say about this team, and it's a bit of a stretch that I even got this far without talking about the rest of this abysmal performance. Their O-line was unsurprisingly horrible, and Sinnett got absolutely leveled by Breland Speaks because of it, and he ended up leaving the game with an injury after that hit. The Roughnecks defense then proceeded to give up 22 points in the third quarter, and the game was over by then. And sure, Sinnett came back in and scored in the fourth quarter, but the over-under was decided in the third quarter, so were we just throwing him in there to make sure we didn't get blown out by 20? Going into this one, E.J. Perry has thrown the most interceptions and has been sacked more than any other quarterback in the UFL. But in this game, he just wanted to prove that that didn't mean a single thing. I mean, I know that I haven't had much faith in Perry this season, and even now I still sit on the fence, but there is no denying his ability to lead this team and the heart he plays with. He finished with 268 all-purpose yards, 3 total touchdowns, and finished with a QBR of 129.8. Marcus Sims had an incredible game, finishing with 84 yards and a tutty as well. This Panther squad didn't only play well on the offensive side of the ball, but their defense looked dynamite too. They put pressure on Sinnett all night, with Breland Speaks just absolutely leveling the poor guy. And yes, I know I already showed this highlight, but I mean, just look at the hits. Then Nakua added an interception on top of that as well. And I wouldn't be talking about this Panthers team if I didn't mention their special teams to some degree. And it wasn't just Jake Bates this time. They had that blocked punt, which set up a score. And then of course, Jake the Great hits a 55-yarder, and he still remains perfect on the season. The most hyped game of the weekend, or at least in my opinion, the most hyped game of the weekend, was the St Louis Battlehawks at the San Antonio Brahmas. Yeah! And let me tell you, this game did not disappoint. The Brahmas' first possession ended in a field goal, but in their third drive is when we really saw the craftiness from this team, and they pulled out all the stops. From speed options to reverse sweeps, this team was just not going to be denied, and John Levitt even did his best LT impression, jumping over the line to get it in for 6. Chase Garbers had a quiet game in comparison to last week, only throwing for 143 yards and a touchdown on 41 attempts, but he still had St. Louis fans biting their nails in nervousness though. though. Although this team started out slow in the first half, I think we learned our lesson with the Brahmas that they are definitely a second half football team, with Darius Phillips forcing and recovering a fumble on the first possession of the second half. And how could I not mention Brad Wing using the hit stick on Darius Shepard? Whatever they're telling those special teams players down there in San Antonio must be something fierce, because they are putting their bodies on the line for Coach Phillips, and I mean literally. Late game heroics from Kirkland and Garbers put them within striking distance, but they couldn't capitalize on their momentum with a brutal overthrow, and that pretty much wrapped it up for the Brahmas. The Battlehawks came into this one soaring high off of that win last week against the Renegades, and it showed. In their first drive, everyone got involved. We had 3 different rushers and 3 different receivers get touches, capping it off with McCary and the Hawks running it in to put the Battlehawks on the board. Now, don't get me wrong, by all accounts, AJ did have a quiet game in this one too. He only finished with 9 more yards passing than Garbers, but 2 things are guaranteed in this life: taxes and AJ McCary and the Hawks absolutely dropping dimes against any defense he's playing against. Like this one to Hakeem Butler, who absolutely babied not just 1 but 2 defenders to make a tough grab. Their defense also made it difficult for the Brahmas to do anything because they were putting pressure on Garbers, and although they didn't record a single sack, their pressures made all the difference. Also, and what kind of guy would I be if I didn't mention their kicker going 3 for 3 and drilling a 54-yarder? Oh, and I gotta give a nod to the caster for coming up with this one.
Schmidt, don't stink.
I mean, think about it. That was actually a good, non-cringy zinger. I'm just a little upset that I couldn't think of it. On to the awards for week 3. And remember, all of my award winners are handpicked for such prestigious honors. The Eli Manning Award goes to Troy Williams. Bro said, screw it. Someone's out there somewhere. I'm just glad to see that even on a new team, he's still being himself. The Wet Like Water Award goes to Adrian Martinez, who absolutely gift wrapped this one to his running back, who made an even better catch. The What Are You Talking About Award goes to Brahmas kicker using the hit stick to bring down Darius Shepard. And finally, the Carpenter Award goes to Breland Speaks, who came screaming off of the edge and absolutely levels Reed Sinnett. On to my week 4 predictions, and I'm coming in red hot with a 3-1 record from my last week prediction, so let's see if I can keep the streak going. First game is going to be the Memphis Showboats coming into the nests of the Battlehawks, and let's be honest, the way that the Showboats have crapped the bed the last 2 weeks, I think that AJ McCary and the Hawks are going to be able to handle business. The second game is going to be between the DC Defenders versus the Birmingham Stallions. Now, the DC Defenders are coming off of 2 comeback wins, but let's be honest, the Birmingham Stallions make light work of any team. They are on a 10-game winning streak and are at home. Giddy up, partner. The third game of the weekend is going to be my favorite. It's going to be the Michigan Panthers at the San Antonio Brahmas. Now, this is going to tell us a lot about both of these teams because, you know, the Brahmas are just an overthrow away from possibly still being undefeated. Meanwhile, Michigan Panthers defense looked great, and EJ Perry's unwillingness to lose makes me favor them a little more, so I'm gonna have to say the Panthers are gonna win this one. Finally, the last game of the weekend is going to be the Battle of the Owens. Who's Owen, you might ask? Well, 0-3, of course. Sorry. The Renegades are probably the best winless team I've seen in a long time. And with Luis Perez being a gunslinger and just the simple fact that I don't trust the coach for the Roughnecks, CJ Johnson, I think that the Renegades run away with their first victory. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you made it to the end of the video here, just give me a like or maybe even a subscribe if you're feeling generous. But I do have to say thank you guys so much for all of the support. Also, if you are a fan of sports history, then you should come check out my YouTube shorts or my TikTok where I post daily.
Hey guys, welcome back to the